Hello, Blackhawks Nation. Welcome to Blackhawks Daily, your favorite recap of the daily buzz about your Chicago Blackhawks. And as we've been talking about this very dry and just very boring offseason, not a lot of buzz. So we're scraping a barrel. We're trying to keep the Jones in that bay until October 7th when the Pocky drops on the centennial season for our favorite team in all of sports, especially in hockey, of course. And really just trying to hold out until training camp starts in September. So I'm PJ, and thank you very much for tuning in for all of this. Let's see what the top 4 topics are for today. So as we continue rolling through August, getting closer to the start of the Blackhawks training camp, we're also celebrating the incredible history of this franchise, of course, before centennial season. So this week, we're discussing the top 25 players in the history of the organization. So I'm grabbing this from Bleacher Nation's Tab Bamford's top 25 Blackhawks of all time. So yesterday we did 25 through 21. Today we're going to do 20 through 16. So let's see what you guys think. At number 20, Dennis Hull, left winger, 5-time All-Star. Blackhawks career, he had 904 games, 298 goals, 342 assists, 640 points, 43 game-winning goals. The Silver Jet will never get the amount of attention that his brother or nephew got for their Hall of Fame careers in the NHL, but he was an outstanding player for a long time. And when Bobby left for Winnipeg, Dennis was left in the awkward position of not only being still in Chicago, but the only Hull to represent the family in the Summit Series against the Soviets in 1972. His 298 goals still rank 7th in franchise history. Number 19, Doug Bentley, left winger. Hockey Hall of Fame inductee, captain, 1942 to 44, 1949 to 50. 5-time All-Star, 3-time All-NHL. 3 top 5 Hart Trophy finishes in his Blackhawks career: 545 games, 217 goals, 314 assists, 531 points, 349 power play goals. Doug is the only Bentley to make our top 25 list, but he was a part of history for the Blackhawks in 1943 when he was part of the NHL's first all-brother line with his brothers Max and Reg. Doug led the NHL in goals twice and assists twice, finished in the top 5 for the Hart Trophy 3 times, and made the All-NHL first team 3 times. Doug is also the author of the first hat trick in Blackhawks history, or Blackhawks playoff history, and the first player in NHL history to have back-to-back hat tricks in the postseason. Very cool. Number 18. Here's one a little higher on the list than I thought he would be. Marian Osa, right winger, 3-time Stanley Cup champion, 2010, 2013, 2015, as we all remember. Hockey Hall of Fame inductee, 2012 NHL All-Star Game. Blackhawks career, 534 games, 186 goals, 229 assists, 415 points, 18 shorthanded goals. The greatest free agent signing in any sport in the history of Chicago, arguably for sure. Hosa came in and helped change the narrative from up and coming to championship caliber. His impact on those 3 Stanley Cup winning teams make up for a relatively limited resume to be this high on our list. He was as good defensively as any wing in the entire NHL during his time in Chicago, and when he was on the ice with Jonathan Toews, they were a scary proposition for teams on either end of the ice. Number 17, Brent Seabrook. Defenseman, 3-time Stanley Cup champion, again, 2010, 2013, 2015, 2015 NHL All-Star Game, 2010 Winter Olympics gold medal. Blackhawks career, 1,114 games, 103 goals, 361 assists, 464 points, 19 game-winning goals. One of the most consistent players and leaders on the dynasty teams, Seabrook may always take a back seat for attention to the other stars, but he was arguably the glue that kept the entire enterprise together. He played heavy minutes, and he was physical. He covered Duncan Keith's ass so that he could play the way he wanted, and he cleaned up messes around the net when opponents thought they might be able to take an extra whack after a whistle. Oh, and the only players to appear in more regular season Blackhawks games than Seabrook are named Makita, Keith, and Kane. Pretty high company there. And finally for today, number 16, JR. Jeremy Roenick, center, Hockey Hall of Fame inductee, 4-time All-Star. Blackhawks career, 524 games, 267 goals, 329 assists, 596 points, 38 game-winning goals. Jeremy Roenick is one of the most electrifying players in the history of the Blackhawks, without question. It's a damn shame he didn't play more games in Chicago. Absolutely. There have only been 8 individual seasons in the history of the Chicago Blackhawks in which a player scored at least 50 goals. Bobby Hull authored 5 of the 8. JR is the only other skater to do it more than once. Al Secord had the other one. Roenick also has 3 of the 12 individual seasons in which a Blackhawks player reached at least 100 points, and he made Lil Wayne bleed. I'm not sure which of these distinctions earned him a spot in the Hall of Fame, but he finally got inducted. Whew, there's a resume. We all love JR, without a doubt. I'm sorry that Wirtz didn't pay him the money that he should have. Okay, moving on from there. We've spent a lot of this offseason going back and forth. We talked about the draft. We spent a lot of looking ahead, talking about the upcoming season and beyond with the prospect rankings. We looked at Jeff Blashill and his systems. Today we're going to, keep looking back a little bit, though. We always love waxing poetic. We love the history part, covering the Blackhawks, since it's one of the most storied franchises in the original 6. There's so much to delve into here. So let's talk about the franchise's golden era, obviously, the 2010s, when the Blackhawks won 3 Stanley Cups in 6 seasons. Those teams were stacked with Hall of Famers. Marian Hossa, as we've mentioned, Duncan Keith, a workhorse we really haven't even delved into yet, have already been elected. They will undoubtedly be joined by Brent Seabrook, Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews. Those teams had excellent secondary players, Patrick Sharp, Andrew Shaw, and Nicholas Jarmelson, to help with the heavy lifting. With so many talented players on these 3 championship teams, it's easy to get lost in the mix. So we're going to look back at the 5 most underappreciated players of those squads. Let's see what you guys think. So at number 5, forward Brad Richards. Brad Richards wasn't in Chicago for a long time, but he was there for a good time. He signed with the Blackhawks in the summer of 2014, immediately took over the second-line center role. He formed an excellent chemistry with Kane, as the two were attached at the hip for much of the season. Chris Versteeg spent most of the time as the left winger on that line, and with Sharp getting 16 games in that spot as well, Richards had 12 goals, 37 points in 76 regular season games. The 2004 Conn Smythe amped up his game for the postseason run, scoring 3 goals and 14 points in 23 playoffs games. He was fifth among forwards in 5v5 time on ice. I think that was a 2014 Conn Smythe. Excuse me. Brian Bickle moved into the left wing slot with Richards and Kane for most of the 2015 Stanley Cup playoffs. That line wasn't the greatest defensively, but they outscored opponents 6-4 at 5v5. Richards filled the second-line center role for the entire season, a spot that was in heavy rotation in the past. He brought another veteran presence with a championship pedigree to an already impressive locker room. Richards was a perfect fit for that 2014-2015 team. Number 4, D-man Michael Rozabal. The Blackhawks signed Rozabal just before the lockout started in 2012. The veteran defenseman was brought in to solidify a top-heavy defensive core. With the addition of him and Johnny Oduya, I just love saying Johnny's name, at the previous trade deadline, it gave the Blackhawks elite depth on the blue line. During a whirlwind 2013 season, Rozabal spent most of the season paired with Oduya, but also spent some time with Keith as well as Nick Leddy. He posted a combined 58.6 Corsi for percentage in the regular season and playoffs in 2013. It was a shot that deflected off of Dave Boland and Shaw that won Game 1 in the Stanley Cup final against the Boston Bruins. Fans began to realize the value of Roosevelt during the 2015 postseason. He suffered a severe ankle injury in Game 5 of the second round against the Minnesota Wild, ending his season. And with him out of the lineup, the Blackhawks had to rely on the shell of Kimmo Timonen and the inexperienced trio of David Rundblad, Kyle Comiskey, and Trevor Van Riemsdyk to fill out their bottom pair. Thanks to her Herculean effort out of the top four, including a Conn Smythe performance from Keith, the Blackhawks found their way to win their third championship. Whew. Number 3, and I'm sorry, my throat's a little raw today, so I'm struggling through this. Michael Handzus. Michael made his first stop in Chicago when he was acquired from the Philadelphia Flyers for Kyle Calder back in 2006. He got off to a great start with 3 goals and 8 points in 8 games before suffering a season-ending injury. And then he was sent to Los Angeles Kings the following summer. At the 2013 trade deadline, he was traded back to the Blackhawks by the San Jose Sharks for a 4th-round pick. Handzus eventually worked his way back into the second line, where he centered Sharp and Kane for much of the 2013 postseason. He provided a solid defensive presence, which allowed his talented wingers to excel in the offensive zone. They created 60 scoring chances at 5v5, the second highest total on the team. He played a big role in the comeback against the Detroit Red Wings in the second round. He had an assist on the opening goal in Game 5. And in Game 6, he tied the game in the opening minute of the third period. He stretched his point streak to 3 games with an assist on the opening goal in Game 7. And while Seabrook's overtime goal in Game 7 was the most remembered, the Blackhawks never got there without the play of Handzus. Number 2, forward, Marcus Kruger. There was never anything flashy about Marcus Kruger's game. A 5th-round pick in 2009, he used his 200-foot game to carve out a place on 2 of the greatest Blackhawks teams ever assembled. Kruger and Michael Frolik formed a great defensive duo on the 4th line of the 2013 team. They were also 2 of the team's best penalty killers, leading a unit that had a 90.7% success rate and only allowed 7 power play goals in 23 games. Kruger took on all the tough assignments, starting over 75% of his postseason shifts in the defensive zone. He still contributed 3 goals and 5 points. His role didn't change much for the 2015 run, but his defense became even more critical with the issues on the blue line described before. For much of the postseason, he was like a third defenseman on the ice during the most important defensive shifts of the game. His biggest moment came in Game 2 of the Western Conference Finals when he beat the Anaheim Ducks with his first career overtime goal. While Kruger rarely found the score sheet, he did many of the things that often go unnoticed but are essential to winning a championship. And he's now hanging out with Frundell, so Frundell will soak up all that knowledge from Mr. Kruger. Number 1, I don't know about underappreciated, but still obviously a key cog, our goalie, Mr. Corey Crawford. Now, as the years have passed, Corey Crawford has earned more respect for his accomplishments with the Blackhawks. But during the runs of 2013 and 2015, he didn't get the flowers that he deserved, both nationally and here in town, if you remember. There was a national narrative during the 2013 playoffs about his weak glove hand, and you heard from pundits and fans alike that any goaltender could have won on those Blackhawks teams. Fans repeatedly called for Ray Emery or Scott Darling to start games, while Crawford did nothing but win. And I remember those days, especially Scott Darling. Even Kane said Crawford should have won the Conn Smythe in 2013. He went 16-7 with an astonishing .932 save percentage. And while that team could skate anyone out of the building and dominated puck possession, when they did slip up, Crawford was there to bail him out. In 2015, he struggled in the opening series against the Nashville Predators and lost his job to Darling for 4 games. He returned in relief during Game 6 and stopped all 13 shots he faced in the series-clinching win. He never looked back from there, posting a .924 save percentage and allowed only 3 goals in his 4 victories over the Tampa Bay Lightning in the Stanley Cup final. Woo! God, I still get nervous just thinking about the Tampa Bay Lightning series. That was nuts with Shields and that torn groin. It's just nuts. Anyway, on to our third subject of who is our actual number one D-man. So on Monday, Bleacher Report put out a ranking of each team and in the NHL and their number one defenseman. For the Chicago Blackhawks, they consider Alex Vlasic to be the number one and ranked him to be 31st best in the NHL. And that's not saying he's the 31st best defenseman. This is saying that he's the 31st best number one. Vlasic's a very good player. Although this feels a little disrespectful, especially since he was so good last year, it may be closer to reality than not because of how many good number one defenseman players there are. He's a great player on his end, but he doesn't produce a lot of points at a high rate, and so he isn't really even a prototypical number one. And not every team, or not even close to every team, has a guy who is elite on all three zones. Listing him as the number one is a product of what happened last year, so I mean that's a nod to him. The Blackhawks traded Seth Jones to the Florida Panthers, and that left Connor Murphy and Alec Martinez behind on a blue line with a bunch of players on a 24. Martinez has since retired. Vlasic's already better than Murphy. But is he a true number one? Well, Levshunov and Renzel would like to say something about that. Each of them made their NHL debut in the final quarter of the season last year. Levshunov, who Chicago took second overall in the 2024 NHL draft, played 18 games. He had six assists during that time, while having some ups and downs defensively. Renzel, who was taken by the Blackhawks 25th overall in 2022, played 9 games over his season with the his season with the University of Minnesota ended. In those 9 games, Renzel collected 6 assists himself. By the time the season was over, all 3 of them were playing big minutes. None of them looked out of place doing it, and even when they were against some of the best offensive players in the world. So, of course, there's going to be some slumps for all of them as they continue to evolve in this, basically the top league in the world. But they all possess tremendous skill that should help them make an impact at the NHL level. So, I guess the question is, who is the number one defenseman on the team right now? The best answer is that these 3 have the inside track to take that role on. They all may share it throughout the year, which is probably best for a young team like the Blackhawks. If any of them have the highest ceiling based on what we've seen so far, it has to be Renzel. He's looked incredible with the stint with Chicago. However, he must come into 2025-26 and stay at that level while progressively getting better. Levshunov, being a second overall pick, has to be in the mix for the lead as well, just because of his pedigree. If Vlasic turns out to be a number 3, Chicago's blue line will be in great shape. Other players like Ethan Del Mastro, Nolan Allen, Louis Crevier, Kevin Korchinski, and among others, are looking to make an impact on the lineup as well. Remember Kaiser as well. We got to sign him. The Blackhawks rebuild has been slow and at times painful. More painful than not. But they've been great at adding defensemen who look the part of NHL regulars, and that is the first step of becoming a great contender. So there we go. And some quick hot takes. All 3 of these hot takes are from new ones, so no repeat offenders today. Snotty T 471 said, Jammer, and then moved on to be Jelly. I asked if Jarmelson, I remember Jarmelson being called Jelly, and my friend's telling me, no, it was never called Jelly. Thank you, Snotty. Thank you for backing me up on that. I really appreciate it. Cliff Clone said, geez, get their names right. These are great players in the past. Eric Nestorenko, Chico Maki, not Maki, it's pronounced Mackey. So Chico Mackey, thank you. I'm going to flub up on some of these sometimes. Thank you for correcting me, sir. I appreciate it. They deserve their names to be said correctly. Thank you for putting me in my place. I'll remember that for the future. I appreciate that. And Boo Boo Bear D2 Up said, who came up with the list? I have seen a few decades of Blackhawks, and I already have issues with the list. And as I had mentioned right in the beginning, this list that we were talking about, the top 25, is from Bleacher Nation. So that's who we're doing it. We're just using that as a framework. Let's talk about it. So thank you so much, guys. That's a wrap for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing and sharing the channel. We're just trying to get through to when actual action starts. So really appreciate you spending some time with me. Really appreciate you keeping the hope alive and keeping the focus on the Hawks, the best hockey team in the NHL, the best city in the world. This Original Six team deserves all of our love and all of these fans holding them up. So thank you so much for being a part of that. Thank you so much for being on this journey with me. I really, really do appreciate it. So that does it for today. I'm PJ. I will see you next time on the Blackhawks Daily.